Is that hitting near your house? Oh,
I'm really not.
sorry, I didn't mean to.
It's fine. I'm trying not to think about it. I called my mom today before I said to her. She's like, "Get up there."
Testing, testing. It's coming out of here.
Yeah, yeah, so that's, we did it.
Yeah.
But these speakers, these things are also just like the pattern. You can hear in the back room, the same as if you're sitting right on the speaker.
I'll just make sure everybody's bike's on.
Yeah, so that was part of the issue with the audience in here.
Yeah.
And we were only really mics for these are all off right now. How are you? Good.
Yeah.
You all right?
What's
What's up, Brian?
How are you?
How's your summer, man?
Good. How about yourself?
Good. Good. We're getting geared up.
Yes.
Paid the bill for Donald. Can't believe it. Going to the community college bill is pretty reasonable bill. So.
Jim, try one more time. I don't think they touched.
How are you?
Oh, all right. Hang on.
See if you can do it with the touch.
Yes, sorry. Yep, there's another one coming. So this one. Not really.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You have your superintendent reports on the website.
Yeah. Under what's new.
Okay.
On the district page.
All right, good. We're gonna do this. So somebody can maybe tweet the company number curriculum reports in the minutes. Manager of review. But maybe I'll suggest put a link. Line minutes, I can always just put the web link right there and it's that way. Oh, thank you. You're wonderful audience. It's great to see you all. You're here all week. Holiday and Friday, Saturday. Yes, man. I know.
Giving them a plug.
Showtime. Call to order, adequate notice of the meeting of the South Hunterdon Regional Board of Education is called to order. Adequate notice as required by the Open Public Meetings Act was provided on December the 5th, 2022 by posting the notice with the respective clerks of the city of Lambertville, Borough of Stockton, and Township of West Amwell, and advertised on December the 8th, 2022 in the Hunterdon County Democrat and Trenton Times newspaper. Stands with a fine salute. Like the pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Andrew.
Jan Shelly.
Here.
Brian Case. Here. Kevin Kowalski. Ron Lewis. Chris Truly.
Here.
Diana Purcell.
Here.
Megan Warner. Ryan Tomarino.
Here.
Jim Galvin.
Here. Next up on the agenda is our PTO, PTA, LAEF update. I'll start with LAEF. Janelle, if you have a report.
Hi, everyone. Janelle Whipple, president of LAEF. Nice to see everyone. Just a quick update. We recently opened our registration for our fall fundraiser. For those of you who don't know, we have two major fundraisers a year to support all of the grants and scholarships that we support with the district. This year, our fall fundraiser is golf day, like we do every year. It's Monday, October 2nd. So we would encourage people to come, get your foursomes together or not, and I'll put you in a foursome. We also have added a new event this year to the agenda, which is a family golf day, which will be Sunday, October 1st, the late afternoon, right before the adult golf day, because we have a lot of golfers, in the district. It would be great for if you have kids that want to come. It is a lower registration price. I do know there is a bit of a conflict with some sports going on, but we're really excited to try it out. So those are our two events. So far, we haven't received any grant applications, but I know the teachers are kind of just putting their minds on things. So we'll look forward to those and talk them over with you guys as they can. Cool.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Janelle.
Don't know if we have a PTO. Mike.
Thank
So hi, Michael Strauss from the West Amwell PTO. Stephanie sends her regrets this evening, and Jessica is a little under the weather tonight, but I am going to report for both. First with LPS, they are kind of kicking off their sixth grade fundraising. We've been doing joint lemonade stands over the summer, and they will be on the corner of Bridge and Union this Saturday. So please stop by. There will be lemonade and chocolate chip cookies available at reasonable prices, from what I understand. And our sixth grade will also be there this Friday for the fireworks. Our sixth grade fundraising at West Amwell has been really, really great this summer. We're coming out nearly halfway to our goal. Call out to both Jen Batchelor and Melissa Hodgman-Collis, who have been both great in coming up with items and kind of helping along the way. So we've got the rest of the year planned out, which is really exciting, and hopefully we'll get there way in time for our trip in May. The PTO as a whole hosted a Break the Ice social this past week for incoming students and welcomed both our kindergartners. And excitingly, we have a lot of new students throughout every single grade and had a lot of them show up, which was really, really nice. It's the first time that I've seen that in my time that we had a lot of kids from the different grades show up. Our first member meeting will be on Wednesday, September 13th. And again, that is actually open to anyone, whether member or not. Our membership drive has just started. People in West Amwell School should have gotten the email this morning from Mr. Miller, but we do hope that we have a really high membership rate, especially this in our last year as Wildcats. We are funded primarily from our both fundraising and our membership drive. We will also have a back to school movie night, which is open to all families at West Amwell from 6:30 to 9 o'clock on September the 15th. And to all of the parents, Relief Kids Night Out will be returning a week later on 9/22. And we have events planned for October the 13th, November. We also have an afternoon event in December for any parent that wants to break away and perhaps go to a mall or something. And finally, trunk or treat has been planned for 10/27 from 6 to 7:30. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay. Correspondence, we have none to the board this month. So we'll move to the approval of minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 24th meeting?
So
Making this Patchouli, second, please.
Second.
Second by Mr. Keys. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor? Aye, it's a voice vote, so anyone opposed? Okay. Reports, we'll start with the superintendent report.
Hello, everyone. Obviously, it's an exciting time with school starting in about a week. So I did want to share some updates on a lot of different things that are going on right now. Just some important dates that are coming up. Our staff actually comes back tomorrow. So we have 3 full days, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, of professional development that we'll be preparing for next week and to welcome back our students. First day of school is Tuesday, September 5th. Just a reminder, we will have late buses running on that Tuesday for any students in after-school activities with a 5:15 p.m. departure. And we'll share more information about that with our students as well on the first day. Back to school nights. So our 7-12 back to school night is Wednesday, September 20th. And then for LPS and West Amwell, it is Thursday, September 21st. And then schools will be closed on Monday, September 25th for Yom Kippur. So just an outlook for the next month and all the different things that are happening. Something big that's happened in the last couple of weeks. And for some, you may be tired of hearing my voice on the phone and getting text messages from me, but we did roll out Encores, so our new student information system. Parents and guardians received their login information on Thursday, August 17th, so they can complete the registration process in Encores. And then this past Thursday, the 24th, we released schedules and a lot of other important information related to the school year, including transportation information. Email was sent out to all students last Thursday about how to access their Encores account, web-based using single sign-on, district Google account. Another email was sent out this morning to our 512 students about how to use the Encores Connect app. So if they have a preference to download the app on their phone and be able to access things on their phone, there was instructions on how to do that as well. Just a reminder, if you need help, and many folks have been taking advantage of this with different questions, but we do have Encores help at shrsd.org. So feel free to send it anytime. We're continually monitoring that and we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can. And then also just a reminder that on our website, and I just wanted to click on it quickly, we do have a page underneath quick links. There's an Encores Connect icon. And then under that, all the videos that I've done or anything that I've sent out so far, and I'll continue to add that to it, is all dated so you can see when that is. And then this is really important too, the link right up here, and this is something you probably want to bookmark. This is where obviously guardians can get access to Encores. And then for our students, they'll be using single sign-on login. So they'll just click on login, ask for their Google account, and they'll go right in. They don't need to remember their password or username or anything like that. So this is a great resource. We'll be spending a lot of time with our students on the first day, especially our older students, walking through this process just so they're comfortable with it and how they can access this on a daily basis, because there will be a lot of information available about their school day. So that is Encores. And I'll be sharing more short little tutorial videos as we get going in the month of September about how to look for this, or once grades start to get posted, depending upon the grade level, just little quick tips to kind of, as you get more comfortable with the system, keeping in mind that it is a 3-year rollout. So we're not using all the different pieces of Encores yet. We will be over the next 3 years. So again, you may see things and say, well, when will we get access to that? It is a 3-year rollout and will be a process to that. All right, so let's talk about St. John's School, or Lambertville on location, as Principal Quinones likes to call it. So last week we had our first open house. I have to tell you, I think parents are very positive and excited about what they saw. Our maintenance crew has done an incredible job in the last 3 months transforming that building. All of them have worked extremely hard. But there is one individual who's here tonight that I want to acknowledge to the board, because they have gone above and beyond. And an example of that is, I looked at a document last week that was 14 pages long, single spaced, with different tasks that needed to be completed. from June 8th until now. And 99% of that document is all crossed out, which means all the things that needed to be done for that building. And that person is in the audience tonight and deserves credit to be recognized in front of the board, because without this individual, we would not be in the situation we're in right now with opening up St. John. And like I said last week, parents came out of the open house, and as I waited outside and greeted them as they walked out, their response was, "It looks amazing, unbelievable what was done with that building." And that's a credit to this individual. So Alan Albanier, I'd like you to stand up and be recognized by our Board of Education. So I remember when we hired Alan, not too long ago, he said in my office, "I'm retired from my career in technology and I just want to cut grass." And boy, has he come a long way in a year and a half of just more than cutting grass. So Alan, again, on behalf of the board and the district, I really don't even know what to say. I mean, you just did an amazing job. And I know, full disclosure, and you can share, rumor has it you lost like 18 pounds from walking up and down the steps over the last 6 months. So thank you again for everything you did. And I know Wanda, sings your praises constantly. All right. So just some things to keep in mind. Like I mentioned, we had our first open house last week. We had a great turnout. We have another one scheduled for this Wednesday. So again, anytime between 5 and 7 that you want to stop by. And even if you don't you're not coming to the school and you want to just come by and see it, feel free to drop by. I'll be there with Principal Quinones. You can walk around, check out classrooms everywhere in the building. We do have a video that we created. So for any parents who maybe are on vacation the last 2 weeks or have a commitment and they can't make the open houses, there is a video on the Lambertville website right now under what's new, where they can click on it. It's about a 3 or 4 minute video, and it really shows you an inside tour of the building and outside the building. I didn't want to send it out to everyone yet because I was hoping they would come to the open houses. But what I'll do is after our next open house, so Thursday morning, I'll just send it out for folks who can watch it. And again, to get an inside look at the building. And then we have another short video that will be coming out later this week that will review all the arrival and dismissal procedures. So for folks that are walking, for parents that are dropping off or picking up, what that kind of all looks like and how we're going to navigate that for our first day of school. So look for that in the coming days. All right, construction update. So let's start first with our pre-K4 building. So we had some unique drone shots in the last couple of days. So I wanted to share. So here's a drone shot you can see, and you can see the front entrance area right here is where a lot of the work is happening outside the building as we prepare for our new addition. So I'll just share a couple shots that you can see and kind of what it looks like compared to what it used to look like. And then inside the building, this is pretty much what you're seeing right now. So this used to be all individual classrooms, right? One classroom after another. So you can see all the walls are knocked out. All the glass that was in there is knocked out. And basically they're starting the reconfiguration because they expanded some sizes with some of our preschools. So the good news is they're making excellent progress. We're still right on schedule. We have construction meetings every other Wednesday morning where we meet with our contractor. So far, so good, keeping our fingers crossed. They really will be in the next 6 to 8 weeks working on the footings and the foundation for the new addition. So the goal would be hopefully by the end of October, we'll have everything done as far as the foundation and really start to work on enclosing that space for the winter weather hits. So far, so good with the pre-K4. And then some exciting news for the 5-8 is that our contractor will be setting up fencing around the site tomorrow morning. And then we are going to begin site work after Labor Day. So sometime that week after Labor Day or a Monday, we will be focusing on the following: clearing the site. So there's a significant wooded area where part of the school will be that needs to be cleared, removal of the backstops and dugouts, and rock excavation for the foundation of the new building, which always can bring its challenges because, as you know, if you live here, it is a very rocky area. We learned that when we did our soccer field. So we have a pretty good indication of what it's going to look like, but you never know until they start actually digging that out. So that will probably happen over the next 6 to 8 weeks. And we still are waiting on DEP permits, but that's for the septic system. but we obviously have plenty of site work to start on before we'll ever get to that point. So I did send out an update to our neighbors on Friday. I'll send an update out to our pre-K 4 neighbors too in the next day or two with some of the information that I shared this evening. So up to this point, we've been managing one project. As of tomorrow, we'll be now managing two, and then have construction meetings set up with our 5/8 contractor, who's a different contractor, and be providing updates to the board and the public as we move along here and progress with our 5/8 school. All right, so that's all I had. Any questions from the board before then we move into our next presentation on what I presented? Okay. So then our second update or presentation, and this is his final update and presentation. We have Mr. Hewitt, who will come up to the podium, and he's going to present some information on some recent assessment results. Mr. Hewitt.
Excellent. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight. I have the pleasure of presenting our Access for Ls and our New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment scores from this past spring of 2023. So I'll get into kicking it off, talking about our Access for Ls data. So first off, what is the Access for Ls? Basically, the Access for Ls is going to be a test that our students take who are eligible for ESL services. And also it's a test that all of our students in grades kindergarten through 12th grade that are eligible for ESL services will be administered each spring. Our kindergarten students actually take a paper pencil test, whereas everyone in grades 1st through 12th grade take a test that's actually online. Clickers. There we go. Thank you.
I'll just click.
Okay,
My battery dead?
I think it's working now. I think.
All right, I'll just say better you than me tomorrow morning, but I have to.
Very much. Yeah, right. No, I think it's good. So basically, who's administered the Access for Ls? Any student in those grade levels that I mentioned prior. And that is any student who's found eligible for ESL services. So in some cases, parents do refuse ESL services for their students, but those students still are tested when it comes spring 2023. So it includes all students that are eligible for services there. So jumping into how many students did test this past spring of 2023, I broke it out here just to kind of look at how many elementary school students at LPS versus West Amwell. You can see a total towards the bottom right there, total LPS students in kindergarten through 6th grade. We had 28 this year. And at West Amwell, we had 8 students test on the Access for Ls. So a total of 36 elementary students were tested this past school year. And then when you go up into the 7th through 12th grade school year, you'll notice that we had a total of 59 students, 7th through 12th grade test. So there has been a decrease in numbers of students eligible for ESL services from the 2022 school year to the 2023 school year. So you do see that drop from a total of 68 students the previous year to just 59 students this year testing in the entire district. And as we look at this, did it advance for me? Let's see. Okay. There we go. In addition to the Access for Ls, for all students kindergarten through 12th grade that are general education students, and in some cases, the students that have IEPs, there are certain students who may also have an IEP that would not typically be expected to test in our standardized testing, things like you've heard about and that I've reported about before, like NJSLA. They would test in a different type of a test, an alternate test due to their abilities. And so the Access for Ls also has an alternate assessment too, which assesses the same language domains, speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And this year we had so few students, actually one student test on the alternate Access for Ls assessment that it's too few to actually report out on. which is also assessed on a six level of performance. They look a little bit different. My first slide, I think I skipped over, shows that there is a 6-point scale with the access kernel assessment 1 through 6, 16 highest level, 1 lowest level. It's come to us all across that continue off of 1 through 6. We'll talk a little bit more about what efficiency can look like as well as now growth and expected for
I just my went out. What it sounded like.
Vince, can you hear
Switched
Jeff?
From speaker behind.
Down there with Brian.
Thank you. All right, does that sound better? Okay, great. Tony, would you mind advancing?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so here's our data on those 6 different levels broken out by grade level. So you'll see across the top of this table, our grade levels, kindergarten through 12th grade. And all the way to the right, you'll see how many students in each grade level scored at each different level of performance, starting from entering up to reaching, again, reaching being the highest level. One thing that I wanted to point out on this slide is that for students to be eligible for receiving ESL services, they do need to score below a 4.5. So when you look at this scale, you'll notice that the 4, 5, and 6 are in different shade of blue, simply because students, as they enter that expanding performance level, they're getting ready to exit ESL services and would no longer be eligible for programming, depending on not just the WIDA scores or the Access for L scores, but also looking at classroom performance, other benchmark assessments, and so forth to kind of make determinations regarding whether they remain in the program or not. So when you look at this overall test, thanks. When you look at the overall scores of the test here, you'll notice very few students at that level 5 and no students at level 6. If a student was at a level 6, they would not be in ESL services and not be taking this assessment. So the scale for this assessment goes up to a level 6. And basically because there's also a screener for students coming into the district whose home language may not be English, who would be put through that screener to determine if they're eligible for ESL services or not. So they do have it through a level 6 for that purpose. So if a student comes to us and they mark on the home language survey that they don't speak English at home, that's an automatic trigger to be screened for ESL services. And it's very likely many students come to us in that situation and score at a 6 because their English is fine, but we do still need to screen them. So it's required that we have a scale that goes up to a level 6 for that purpose to make sure that we're not missing any students as we're screening them, but we're also getting a realistic idea of where they are with their language acquisition. Thank you. So as we look at that data, I just wanted to pull out a few conclusions. First off, out of the 59 total students that were tested, 12 of them did score 4.5 or higher, which is equivalent to 20% of our students that are enrolled in our ESL programs. And typically here in South Hunterdon, as we look at scores of students in past years, it's approximately 10% of students that qualify for potential exiting from ESL programming. So that's a huge increase and really something to be proud of. And I'd like to, obviously make sure that our ESL teachers and all of our gen ed teachers too, working with our students, understand that their hard work throughout the year has really paid off, because we had a number of students eligible for exiting this year and all students making progress, which is wonderful. Typically, it takes about 5 to 7 years for a student coming into an English speaking school from another language to actually gain academic language proficiency. But something, again, very positive to note, that our students typically exit in less than 5 years. And I think that that's a really positive thing for, again, us to recognize that our teachers' hard work. And as you know, we just did an audit of our ESL programming just last school year. which brought about a lot of different conclusions, looked at different professional development opportunities, talked about collaboration amongst teachers in working and specifically meeting the needs of our Ls. And I think that our data from this past testing really does show that our teachers are working really hard and it is benefiting our students. In addition to that, we also have our district benchmark data, which also demonstrates the same students that took this assessment having made progress as well. And then I just did a quick table here to kind of break down some of the general trends around the 4 different domains of language: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And when we look at just kindergarten, those students brand new to our district at the kindergarten level, we noticed 2 areas that we could focus, which we are looking for, areas that we can continue to grow and improve. And our areas to focus in kindergarten were reading and writing. And when we think about that with all of our students, typically the areas to focus are reading and writing for kindergartners as well, because that's the age when they're all learning to do and take on those skills. Speaking and listening, however, were a pretty strong strength in kindergarten. Trends district-wide, we saw a continued area for focus in writing, which I know I've talked about prior when we looked at NJSLA scores as well, that writing is an area in ELA that we are looking to focus. And it shows up here in our ESL scores as well. The strength is reading. Our students really did perform kindergarten through 12th grade in the area of reading very well as listening. And you'll notice average results for speaking. So students basically throughout the K-12 district their results were very consistent as far as speaking goes. All right, I'm going to change gears here a little bit. So our WIDA scores that I just presented, the Access for Ls, came in at the beginning of the summer, and then our NJ GPA assessment scores came in just about a month ago. And so we're pairing both of these. So our New Jersey graduation proficiency assessment data is a test that's given just to 11th graders that we'll see in a moment. But the first time this test was given was the spring of 2022. And that was the baseline for that first administration. So this past school year's group of 11th graders had the second administration of NJGPA provided to them. So this year it will be counting towards their graduation assessment requirement for this year's class. Our current seniors, class of 2024, are required to pass the NJGPA in order to meet graduation requirements that the state has set. So it does assess a couple of contents, not all contents that NJSLA tests, but it does assess English language arts and math. So you'll notice science is not listed. The graduation requirements for assessment proficiency are English language arts as well as math. So math is a combination of not just algebra or geometry by alone, but a combination of both together. So every student in 11th grade is required, must sit for that, the assessment in both ELA and math. There is not an option to refuse that testing. And we'll see later that there are other options to meet graduation requirements, but they do need to sit for this test to be able to move on to those other options. Students that don't meet that cut score are able to meet those other graduation requirements through other pathways. And so we will actually, there's a link later, we'll get a chance to see those as well. So there are other pathways. So we'll talk about the scoring scale for NJ GPA. It's different. We have talked about NJSLA in the past, which is a 5-point scale. NJ GPA is a cut and dry, basically 2-point scale, I guess. It's either met graduation readiness or did not yet meet graduation readiness. And the scale scores that you see listed there are the range for either sections. So the cut score is basically 725 in both ELA and math. Okay, so here's some of our data we're specifically looking at English language arts and a comparison for how our district did compared to the whole state. So in 2022, you'll see basically our numbers from 2022 to 2023 remained almost exactly the same. We had 70 11th graders the previous year, 71 11th graders this past year. And you'll see how we did compared to the state with what looks like a drastic change from 2022 to 2023. I do need to note here that you see a drastic change for both our district as well as the state. So for example, when you look at our district readiness for in 2022, you'll notice that the district's readiness was 55.7%. And now the district's readiness for graduation in ELA in this school year is 85.9%. And when you look at the state, last school year in 2022, there were 39.4% of students ready to graduate versus now 80.5%. They changed the cut score. So the cut score in 2022 was a 750. The cut score in 2023 was a 725. So they didn't change the test. They just moved the needle as far as what would constitute the cut score as meeting that. But you do notice that when we compare ourselves to New Jersey, you do see that we do have an increase both in 2022 as well as 2023 in ELA as opposed to the state. So we are above the state averages in both years. When we look at math, same thing, same cut score, 725 is the cut score here. You see that we are not in the positive above the state. However, we're basically right there with the state. So we are at the state average for graduation readiness when it comes to mathematics. We have talked about mathematics in the past, and we did mention some of the things that we are doing, some program changes that we started at the elementary years. Remember, this is only 11th grade. So I think that that's important to take into account too, because a lot of the changes we're doing are in those foundational years and in years in the middle school and high school as well, moving up to those 11th grade years for the 11th grade year. So some questions may be coming up in your head around the students that we're noticing have not yet shown readiness. And I just wanted to note that this is a test every student must sit for. So when we look at our overall scores and we look at the numbers of students in each, we do have students included in these that have to sit for the test, but may be exempt through an IEP or through a special education program that allow them that their test wouldn't count towards graduation. They'd be exempt from that graduation requirement because they are not at grade level. So I think it's important to take that into consideration when you look at our scores. We also have all of our multilingual learners included in our test scores as well, regardless of what level of English proficiency they're at taking an English test. And I think that's important to take into consideration as well. And in addition to that, what we do for the students, the students that are not yet meeting graduation readiness is really important to note too. We have our IEPs, our individualized education plans for the special education students that have very specialized programs that allow them to be making progress. We're benchmarking assessments throughout the school year. This is a one data point in an entire school year. And quite honestly, with 11th grade, it's a data point that we're looking at for our 11th graders over the last 4 years since they've last had a standardized test. And I think it's important to recognize those points, and also that we put things in place, our day-to-day assessments that are in place, and our initiative around small group instruction and meeting students where they are and developing lesson plans and instruction that meets their needs in those small groups is all initiatives that work to focus on allowing our students to make progress from where they are. So whether they've hit the cut score of that 725 or not, the fact that they're making progress is also an important thing to recognize and acknowledge that they are. In addition to that, we also have things coming up too around this coming school year. We are introducing a flex period at the middle school, high school, which will allow more of that individualized attention for students, specifically geared towards meeting them where they are and allowing them to make progress and tracking that progress through our benchmark assessments as well. So I think it's important to look at all of the data and not just one data point. In addition to that, the different pathways that we have, if you go back one, Tony, and click on that link, those alternate pathways, I just wanted to show you this this presentation is actually posted to our website as well. So this link would be active. But as you scroll down, you'll notice there's a couple of blue bars, and then there's one more blue bar even below that, or maybe two more. It shows you that first pathway. And if you click on the first pathway, you'll notice the first pathway for all students is only the NJGPA assessment in ELA and math. And so all students do need to sit for that. And it's assuming that they sat for that assessment, they're able to move on to the second pathway if they did not meet the requirements of the first one. And you can see sort of the menu of options of what students can do to help meet graduation requirements moving forward. And beyond that, there are students that will also move on to a third pathway who work on a portfolio that's submitted to the state. So the state's built in different ways in which students can still meet graduation assessment requirements, recognizing that a standardized test is not always the only and best way to assess all students. So I think that's important to note. Okay, so the next couple of slides are going to break down our data into different groups of students. So we are required to report out how students do in smaller groups. This chart actually shows ELA and math combined in the bottom row. So really we're looking at an average of ELA and math all together for each of the individualized groups, starting with gender. You'll notice that for both females and also for non-binary students, there's no number under the number column header, simply because it is required that we have at least 20 students or more in a category to report out the number of students that are there. So you'll notice just the squiggle line because we didn't have 20 or more students to include in those numbers. Whereas at the end, the students with disabilities is broken out into students that may have individualized education plans or have a 504 plan. And they're each separated but combined together. We have 22 students in the last year's 11th grade class who either had a 504 plan or an IEP that were assessed in this cohort. It's then broken out by ethnicity, economically disadvantaged students, and English language learners. We did not have 20 or more economically disadvantaged students or English language learners in this 11th grade class, but you will still see an average of the scale score of the testing overall, both like on the last slide for our district and how we compared to the state. So in both, on both slides, you'll notice that our overall scale score is above the state average, looking at standardized testing as a whole. All right, so some of the conclusions drawn from the NJGPA testing that took place starting with English language arts. So again, this is only 11th graders that were tested, but I thought it was important to note that looking at this group of 11th graders, as opposed to that baseline set of test takers the previous year, that this group did increase by 25 scale score points in ELA, and that they also were above the state average by a scale score average of 9 scale score points. So we saw great positive increases in ELA there. And then I also went and looked at how our students, this same cohort, did the last time that they were tested on a standardized state test, which would have been the NJSLA back in 7th grade. So there is not a standardized test for 10th graders, so they would not have tested last year. Some of them may have taken a math test depending on the math they were enrolled in, but as a cohort, there was not testing. There's no ELA testing in 10th grade for NJSLA. So I looked back at 7th grade, which was the year just before the pandemic, and this group did increase. So back pre-pandemic in 7th grade for ELA, they had an average score of 762. As of this newest testing, that same group scored a 774. So I thought that that was important to note because we hear a lot about how there was a lot of learning loss during the pandemic and so forth, but here's the same group of students pre-pandemic and post-pandemic and where they are scale score average overall in English language arts. I thought that was interesting. And then I went and did the same for mathematics. In mathematics, an area we know we have work to do and growth, we noticed that this group of 11th graders scored 19 scale score points lower than the previous, that first year on NJGPA the previous year, and just about 2 to 3 points below the state assessment, the state's overall average. in both years. So they've been consistent from year to year, but that doesn't mean we don't have room to grow there. But interestingly, when we look at how they did compared to when they were seventh graders on their math tests on the NJSLA, we did see that they did actually score better. So we see a higher scale score average for this group of testers as 11th graders with a 750, as opposed to a 742 as an average for the same group of testers back as seventh graders in math. So that's something to also recognize. And then when we look at everything combined and together, and we look at how this group of 11th graders, now our seniors, they did score better on average, with basically, what did I say? That the scored a better scale score average than the last time that they had taken standardized tests in seventh grade. So overall, they also had an increase in their scale score from when they last took a standardized test score. So that's something to think about as well. All right, so what other data is available? NJGPA is not it. It's a one mark in time. It's taken over a couple of days. I wanted to include all of our different benchmark assessments here, even though we're talking about 11th graders, you'll see benchmark assessments back in kindergarten. So we collect a lot of data over each school year students are with us. And I think it's that data that really helps us more than anything else to really allow students to make progress and to show progress that they're making. And so you'll notice from DIBELS in kindergarten through third grade to STAR reading and STAR math in some of our upper grades, but also in math as low as first grade and through middle school. Fontes and Pinnell is also another reading assessment that we do kindergarten through sixth grade. And our writing benchmark prompts are done kindergarten through eighth grade. So we really are assessing reading, writing, math all the way through. And we do see progress when we look at those benchmark assessments. And I can't leave out classroom performance data. That day-to-day formative assessments are things that are happening in the classroom every day at the end of a lesson, at the start of a lesson, when we're doing do nows or closure activities and exit tickets, any data that's being collected. And one of our focuses as a district is increasing that data to really drive instruction for those small groups, because we can collect all this data and then it's a matter of utilizing that data to really provide instruction for students with materials that are at grade level, that also allow them to get what they need in small groups to meet their individualized needs. And then summative assessments, of course, are like end of course tests and things like that. So we also use that data as well. So our next steps, how do we utilize this data gained from the assessments? A number of ways. First off, we have to share the data with the key stakeholders, which are the teachers in the classroom providing the instruction. And it's the teachers that utilize that data from not just standardized tests, but benchmarks and everything else I've mentioned. But we also look at standardized tests in particular, like NJGPA, to look at different trends that we might need to update curriculum with or update resources with. It's really important that we make sure that we use that as kind of an overarching guide to where we could see our district as a whole and programming as a whole have needs and where our strengths are as well. And then, of course, teachers are going to design lessons geared towards those areas based on those district curricula. And we also want to make sure that we're providing the professional development necessary. We saw that when we did the special education audit, as well as the ESL audit. Professional development, time for teachers to collaborate, time for teachers to work with materials and resources that are really going to meet their students at all different levels and with all different backgrounds. That's really, really important. And so providing that professional development based on the data and the trends that we identify is really important. And then our access for ELs in particular, that is one test I mentioned earlier, the 4.5 cut score in order to be found eligible for ESL services. So that is one data point that the state does require that students have to hit that 4.5 or higher to be able to be considered for exiting. But it's also used if they're below that 4.5, then obviously students will automatically be enrolled in ESL programs, which will help to support them as well. Thank you. So I would ask for questions. I was told this is my last presentation, so I should drop the mic, but I'm not going to drop your mic, Vince. So I did it digitally. But I appreciate your time tonight. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
So we'll start with any questions from the board. And yes, we did in fact tell him to be like, no question. Walk out like a boss.
He would never. do
He's earned the right to do that, but does anyone from the board have questions from the review on the presentation on the SHRSD?
I have two questions, mostly because I just want you to say it out loud. But,
Okay.
So the first one is around the pathways, right? And the support that the school, and maybe this might be a question for Tony, but the support for the school for those students that have to go through that process. So obviously the test is the first pathway. If for whatever reason they need to go to the second or third pathway, what's that approach look like?
So I can answer that. So a lot of the second pathways are tests and things that students may have already taken and passed and met the benchmark or the state cut score there, but they're still required to take the NJGPA in order to utilize that assessment, like a PSAT or an SAT score or something like that. And if that's not the case, the counselors will reach out to schedule time and work with the families to get them tested.
And then the second question is around on-course. You talked about a lot of data,
Yes.
right? Maybe you can give a little insight into the plans for on-course year 3, like think about what will year 3 look like with on-course and that data.
Sure. So right now, teachers, primarily at the elementary levels, are doing a lot of progress monitoring, particularly in ELA and reading, and literally using charts and graphing and plotting points and collecting data for students that are not yet at grade level. And so that's a lot of work and time and trying to like plot all these and literally with rulers and graph paper and things. In OnCourse, it has the ability for all of this data to be inputted, and it will be inputted. It'll be just uploaded. All the state testing is something that we can export and then import right into OnCourse. And then teachers have access to the data for any student that they're working with and be able to use that data. They get like a portfolio of assessment information. And that's really helpful because it drills it down. Also, you can look at standards specifically, not just an overall scale score, but specifically what areas within that content area do they need to focus on. So it's going to house not just the state testing, but also benchmark assessment scores. And they can build assessments in OnCourse themselves and administer assessments out of OnCourse, and it's automatically tracked there. So it's a great tool for guiding instruction. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Yeah.
And the task that you were looking at the seventh graders, if you were comparing to the NJPA,
Mhm.
they left graders from not taking, what is that task? Because if I understand the NJPA is something that's only taken by 11th and 12th, so.
Correct. So the NJGPA is only taken by 11th grade. And I compared it with that same group of 11th graders scores that they had when they took the NJSLA as 7th graders. So I was looking at, okay, what was their scale score back when they were in 7th grade? Because that was the last time they had a standardized test, and comparing it to what's their scale score now on the NJGPA as 11th graders. And we saw an increase in both ELA and math of scale score averages.
The scoring.
It's the same scale. Yes.
Well, same
Yes.
range,
The same rate, yes, thank you,
Right.
that's, yeah.
but this is the test you get a mailing from with your child's results. But
Yes.
this is there's a 5, so in that, that's a 750 is I think the cutoff with 3, which is like there's like a 4 and 5 are your exceeding proficient, 3 is probably your average, 2 and 1 are meeting 4.
Right.
So it is the same range of scores. So that but it's basically you're scoring over 3. In order to pass the graduation, you're exceeding that, that mark. That would equate to a 3 on this.
So I specifically looked at scale score averages as opposed to performance levels, because on NJGPA, there's really 2: met graduation requirements or did not. Whereas NJSLA has 5 performance levels, a 1 through a 5, like Jim is saying, and a 725 to a 749 is a level 3, a 750 and higher is a level 4 or 5, which is meeting or exceeding expectations.
So this way, we did not meet the graduation requirement.
In math. Yeah.
What does that mean? What's the next step? I mean, obviously you graduate, right?
Mhm.
But, how is that information then used? Like, it's just to tell them we didn't actually meet the graduation requirement, but yet you're going to graduate. I don't think that's.
Right. So the students that did not yet meet graduation assessment requirements on this assessment have other assessments to prove that they did meet graduation assessment requirements. So it's really assessing the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, right, in ELA and then geometry and algebra. And there's also other assessments that assess that as well. And the states put different cut scores at different places because they understand, I believe, that students are coming into that testing in 11th grade at all different levels. And some students have different needs that may not be at a grade level that's going to allow them to pass NJGPA. Doesn't mean that we don't try to get them there, but at the same time, our goal is that students are making progress. And when we look at our students based on our other data, they are making progress. And so the state does build in that additional types of tests that might, like the portfolio, which is that third pathway for some of our students that are going to be able to build a portfolio showing their knowledge, as opposed to being put in front of a computer without any support and having to do it all on their own, because that's not what life may be like for some students, that they may need additional supports that are not allowed on NJGPA.
Okay, I have one more question. Is there something that is the difference between the 11th grade test scores between the ones who just took it and the ones who took it last year? Why is that unusual that there's such a difference between
They changed, so that change that you saw, that drastic change from last year to this year.
No, that's,
Right.
that's, I know that. That's
Okay.
because they lowered. the
Right.
bar,
Mhm.
But, no, between our students, even taking that into consideration, the percentage would go, if I understand somewhat. You should.
Our percentage above the state average, or
Yeah. difference is compared
the
to
comparison, right? Right. So it is a different cohort of students. So you take that into consideration. I didn't do an analysis, or I wouldn't present an analysis of cognitive ability at each cohort and things like that. But I would say it is a different group of students, each with different needs. And so although in both cases, we are definitely above the state average, or right at the state average, we did in ELA particularly, actually at the math level, we were more consistent from grade level to grade level, but in the ELA, we did see a difference in our comparison to the state. We're still above the state in both years, but it is a different cohort of students.
This is the second year it's been administered, so this is brand new. Last year it did not count towards graduation. So this is the
Correct.
very first time the state is utilizing this, and it could change again.
Correct.
Learning.
I will say, while I'm here, many of you know the Start Strong assessments that were offered the last couple of years, required the last couple of years. They are not being administered this year. So it will be our benchmark assessments, and there will not be an additional state assessment in the fall. So that's good to announce here too.
The data came out so late that it was not. Yeah.
Right.
But the other thing I would add is that the multiple pathways that has, even though it was an GPA test, we have always had multiple pathways to achieve graduation requirements. And other type of ways that you could show that you had mastered the skills that would allow you to. That's not something new. Any other questions? We're gonna go into public comment after this, and I'm going to do a leader, but I'm sure that if you have questions, if they're short enough that you can answer them, or if not, we'll get back to the longer answer. But I'm gonna turn my microphone on, maybe.
Well, thank you.
Maybe, well, don't go away from the podium, man, because I would be absolutely remiss.
On my clicker.
If I did not mention, it is Mr. Hewitt's final meeting with us. And acknowledge what this man has meant to our district, to a whole generation of parents, some of whom are sitting here tonight. and to their children. As a principal at Lambertville School, prior to regionalization, and he came in, you said, I think 2010. I actually thought it was like 2007, but it was a long time. And just was beloved principal in Lambertville. When we regionalized, he became the guy that he was the problem solver, right? We needed a principal to help out at Stockton. He went to Stockton. We had a crisis in the curriculum office. He did not want to be a director of curriculum, but we needed somebody who was capable. And he took that job. He stepped down from doing something he loved, being a principal of a school building, and took that job and has done an amazing job. Pardon me, I'm an emotional person sometimes, so I'm not good at this stuff. But I think, Mr. Hewitt, you're a man of integrity. You're a person with a huge heart for kids. I want to say that a lot of the things that he talked about, Mr. Hewitt, even before he was the curriculum director, he brought in that and pushed for that Orton Gillingham training, right? That's training that is foundational to the things that we're doing. The Fontes and Pinel assessments, the Dibbles, all of those things are things, these are pieces that he brought here and championed, and they are going to be a large part of what we build on and move on as we move on. So, Mr. Hewitt, it has been an honor and a blessing to work with you. I say that for myself, but I think I can speak for the whole board to say that you will be missed. And we wish you nothing but fantastic success and joy in your new position.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you all. I wasn't expecting this, but I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the support. This board's always been extremely supportive over the last 13 years that I've been in the district, and all of the boards that were here, the regionalized board, the boards before them, have a very supportive community as well. And it's the educators in this district, the professionals in this district that, quite honestly, bend over backwards to do whatever they can. And that's educators, including parents. Parents are educators as well. Educators number one, you know. But I can't thank you all enough for the support. I've felt it all along the way. And although it's sad to be leaving, I can really appreciate all that I've experienced and learned over the time that I've been here. So thank you for everything.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the period of public comment. If anyone has a comment, you address it to the board. If you have a question about the presentation or of anything that's on the agenda or not on the agenda, feel free to come up. We will limit the comments to about 3 minutes, but if you have a longer comment and you want to talk to me afterward, I'm happy to do that. We will, if we can, we'll answer it. If we're able to answer it shortly this evening, otherwise we will get back to you with an answer. Does anyone have anything they would like to bring before the board? Do we have any online?
Yes, we have one. And it is from Erica Krim. I've had the pleasure of working with Mr. Hewitt as my building principal at LPS and as the district curriculum director. Just want to say publicly to thank him for his years of service to the South Hunterdon community and wish him well in his new position.
Amen. Well said, Mr. Krim. If there are no other comments, I will close this first period of public comment. And we will move into our agenda. There will be a second opportunity to comment at the end of the meeting. And so we will go to committee reports. We'll start with buildings and grounds. Ms. Person.
Okay, so we met this past Thursday. Some of the things we discussed, buildings and grounds, we just discussed the construction updates that Tony shared earlier. Discussed the continuing updates on setting up St. John's and how wonderful Alan is. Mount Airy Happy Time preparations as well, because we're adding an additional preschool class to that building. Then lastly, about how busy prep has been going on to get the schools ready. Everyone will notice the floors are very shiny and squeaky clean. But there's been a lot going on behind the scenes to get ready for the kids to come back. In finance, we just recently completed our audit. All the recommendations that we had for 21-22 have been addressed and closed, and anything that results from this audit will be shared, will be upcoming and shared, and we will share that out loud. Certain contracts, we do have a few that are up for approval, some notable ones. Hunterdon County VOTEC, that is our our tuition for our VOTEC students. And MKS Partners, that is for blended learning cohort and new English language arts curriculum, but it's also important to note that that's going to be mostly, if not all, paid for by ESSER funds. Our monthly update for our ARM investing, that was the referendum funds that we deposited. We're up to over $1 million in interest earned in that account. Then we also have up for approval some payments, our third payment for Scazzari, and then also for the asbestos abatement that happened at the elementary school. That's all been completed. Transportation, we are now fully staffed, which is a great thing, and all of our runs are covered. Also a great thing. And the new bus that we approved in our spring meeting, that should be arriving soon. And lastly, our cafeteria, we did also approve an order of new tables for the schedule change to accommodate the middle school. But those tables also will be transported to the new middle school once that opens. And that's it. So with that, I'd like to move items A through F.
So move. Can I have a second, please? A second by Mr. Bichetti. Any discussion on items A through M? If not, let's vote.
Yes.
Brian Keys? Yes. Tracy Choi?
Yeah.
Diana Purcell?
Yes.
Brian Calhoun?
Yes.
Kim Bell?
Yes. Personnel, Ms. Warner's not here. Ms. Fischetti, your personnel committee, would you give a report on that, or you want to defer to him?
I'm gonna ask that.
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be fine.
So we, a lot of our conversation was about, the new staff orientation, which was last week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We also talked about obviously the schedule, and we looked at professional development for this coming week, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. You'll notice on the agenda, there is a lot for the board to approve, just for some of our new hires, folks that are leaving. I do want to acknowledge Kim Bogdan, who's been in the district for quite some time. It was kind of late, unexpected retirement. She's relocating with her husband to Houston, Texas for a job change for him. So we wish her well, but she's been a great part of our school community for a long time. And then it's also exciting to announce our new director of curriculum instruction and assessment, who happens to be with us this evening. This is Jane Ellen Lennon, who's sitting in the front row there next to Mr. Hewitt. So after going through a rigorous interview process with many candidates and many rounds, I'm excited to announce Jane Ellen. Jane Ellen comes to us from the Hopewell Valley Regional School District, where she most recently served for 6 years as the principal of Tollgate Grammar School. Before that, she was the district supervisor of language arts, social studies, and the gifted and talented program. Before that, she was an instructional coach. And then before that, she was a classroom teacher for many years. So we're very excited to have her. And we're still working on an actual TBD start date. She does contractually still owe some time to Hopewell Valley, but we're working with them to get her released as quickly as we possibly can. She will be with us over the next couple of days for all of her in-service time. So we welcome her to the district, and we look forward to having her start officially as soon as possible.
With that, we need to make a motion to approve item M. A, oh, and
A and B. So moved.
Second. Any discussion on the motion? One second, Mr. Hugo said about the teachers and the bottom, Mr. Tolga, custodian, and Shadle, all the great people in the units. We welcome you. Looking forward to working. Let's vote.
Sorry, Mr. Keys? Yes. Tracy Choi?
Yeah.
Diana Purcell?
Yes.
Kim Bichetti?
Yes.
Brian Calhoun?
Yes.
Kim Bell?
Yes. Curriculum and technology.
Yeah. So we met this month. We have a few curriculum to approve, especially around the music program, including the revised concert band and the concert choir. We also have a music technology curriculum, for people, which is new. And does align with communication that we shared earlier this year. We also have some revisions to the sustainability in agriculture. We talked a lot about kind of the future there and looking at kind of agriculture, in the future and what it will look like in terms of solar and other kind of expanding that, moving forward. So we're definitely going in that direction. And then the graphic novels. The one thing I just want to call out is a big thank you to Mr. Hewitt. One more time, I know we're going to miss you. So as my partner in the curriculum meetings, and welcome, to the party. So but we do welcome people. We welcome you to our curriculum meetings and looking forward to working with you when things get settled and are started. And then just one other thing is around the on-course, right? I keep pushing on-course because I'm excited for what the opportunities brings to both teachers and parents in terms of helping this, getting awareness in terms of how the learning is going and having that insight in an easy way. And I'm glad that Jeff was able to articulate that for us. And I know Janelle, and you bring some experience with that. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about it from your experiences as well. And so that's what I have for curriculum. So I wish to move letter A.
So moved. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Ms. Todd Marino, second, thank you. Any discussion on item A for curriculum? I would just note that again, South Hunterdon, historically, we have always had a strong agricultural program. We are a rural farming type community here in West Amwell. We are the only one in the county that has an FFA program, which historically has been a strong one. It had elected people into leadership posts statewide. So we look forward to continuing that and maintaining that. Any other discussion? Then let's vote.
Great for children.
Yes.
Sam.
Yeah.
Tina Shetty,
Yes.
Brian Hughes, yes. Ronnie Todd-Marino.
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Patchouli, you might as well stay on it.
Okay. So policy we met this evening. We did talk about the therapy dog policy. Obviously, having the dogs in school require that we have a policy to coordinate with that, and it does require the certifications of the animals have on their handlers person. We also did talk a little bit about what it means in terms of rotation and making sure that there's coverage and things like that. And so that policy is available for parents and others to take a look at, and any questions that anyone has about this, because it is a new program in terms of being in the school, please don't hesitate to reach out to Tony and you can answer any questions. And then the other is sick leave. So there's been some changes to the policy and regulation on sick leave in terms of when you can use sick leave. I'll just probably summarize it that way. And so these, what you're seeing on the agenda this evening is some of those variations from the current policy and regulation. And we are in the process of determining some of the options to select there. And I believe our plan is to talk about it at a future time. And then the second reading is the school threat assessment, which we did talk about last month, and then instructional supplies. We've tabled the substance abuse for a future meeting to discuss. So with that, I'd like to move A and B.
So moved. Any discussion on exactly?
Sam.
Yes.
Shetty.
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Ms. Patchouli,
Yes.
Ronnie Todd-Marino,
Yes.
and Gal.
Yeah. School committee.
So in school and community, we reviewed the climate survey that got us. So if you recall, last month we took a look at it, or actually it was in the June meeting, we took a look at it, and there's Likert scales, so there's graphs that are informative, but then there's also quite a few comments that we wanted to understand a little bit better. So we asked Tony to review those and give us a summary. of those the top topics that were mentioned. Because sometimes the comments would directly contradict each other, not enough homework, too much homework, that kind of thing. So we thought that this would be more meaningful information. And Tony will be presenting that at the September board meeting, and the administrative team really uses that list. Remember, it's the student surveys, the staff surveys, and the parent surveys. So those lists are very important in developing the strategic planning action plan. So and that's something that we worked on and presented by the end of the year. We also talked about a training that was conducted at the administrators retreat on communication best practices, and some of the key things that were learned in that, and how that will be incorporated into the way that the district communicates through things like social media, the use of the district newsletter, Messenger, all of those, like, really understanding, like how to best reach people, and what information needs to be conveyed quickly for consistency. We talked about academic achievement motivation, and how, as we improve the academic rigor of the school, it's really, and the district, it's really important that we look at how we are using praise, because there's a lot of research that shows that there's pros and cons, and it's really based on how it's done. So each time we're creating a program that uses praise and reward, that we're reviewing it as balanced and deliberate, and putting thought behind it, just to make sure that it's effective and that it supports student well-being. We talked about the St. John's open house and FAQs. Again, as questions come up, there's the open house, there's the video, but Tony is going to again have his office hours where people can always ask questions. So we'll continue to remind the community that that's an opportunity where Tony is manning the phone, waiting for those calls, or would be happy to meet with people who have questions. And we discussed the on-course rollout, and I know that that's been discussed quite a bit, but one thing that I wanted to highlight, I know that there's a lot of information that, well, there was some information that parents received, and then there's more information that the students received. There's also still information being ported from Aspen. So that's something that's
Historical, yes.
historical.
Yep.
So if families are looking for that, that will be coming. It's not.
Yeah,
it's
eventually you'll be able to see previous report cards, grades, all that kind of stuff from previous years.
not, right. I just wanted to note that in case people were concerned about that. And there's the help desk email that if there's any questions, that can be utilized. And I have nothing to just to repeat it, the office hours, Tony, if you want it.
8 to 9 a.m. every Tuesday morning. Please come visit, call, Zoom, whatever you'd like to do.
I think it's important to note that I don't know that anyone has taken advantage of that.
Not yet.
And that's the
Everybody, I
best
hope.
place to get information. Like, don't go to Facebook to ask questions. If you want the source, if you want the information, we're very accessible.
Or even if you just have ideas, right, that
Yeah.
you want to share about thoughts on how to improve the district, it's a great opportunity, to kind of have that dialogue.
And with that, we will move to the information item. There was no report from people. We did have fire drills, safety drills, on July 15th. Fire drill on July 15th. And there's a middle school, high school safety drill on the July 19th, and a fire drill on July 15th. So with that, we come to the second period of public comment. So again, we open the period of public comment. Anyone has questions, we'd like to bring to the board. Please come up and,
I can't just come up once. So Michael Strauss from West Amwell. I did want to just first call out two things really positive that I heard and saw this evening. One, not academic, but the fact that we are fully staffed with bus drivers. Congratulations to whoever pulled that off. That is really, really good in this day and age. And frankly, a really big relief to me to hear. The second thing is the addition of the graphic novels curriculum. my heart just kind of blew up as somebody who has a child who found her path to literacy through graphic novels, but also somebody who works within the industry and knows just how much of an impact it can have on literacy. It's very exciting for me to see. The fact that Mr. Chan is heading it is even more exciting. So congratulations for that. Thank you for looking for new and innovative ways to make that happen. I also would be remiss not to thank Mr. Hewitt. I've seen him in so many different hats. One of them quite literally pirate one, but it is a loss for our community, and you will be very, very missed. Welcome, Ms. Lennon. I didn't think that anyone could keep up with his suit game, but evidently you are bringing it. So, and I do have one question in all seriousness. The permit for the septic system, is there something specific holding that up? I know at the last meeting you expected that we would have it by now.
It's a 90-day review by the DEP.
Okay.
So the clock has been ticking.
Okay.
So we check in on a weekly basis with a liaison that we have there, and we're hoping to get it as soon as possible.
Okay. Anything that we can do to help to make some phone calls and move it along, we'll be happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Any other? Public comment? The online?
No. No.
Then I will close the period of public comment for this evening. And that was pretty much it. We do have a meeting, the board doesn't meet on an executive session for probably about a half an hour. There will be no action taken after that executive session. So we will need a motion to go into excuse me. We will need a motion to go into executive session. We'll have a 5-minute recess, so we say hello to people, communicate, and then we'll move into our usual spot. So can would someone make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second for that? Brian, Mr. Keys. So motion to go into executive session of 8:17. All in favor?
Aye.